Welcome to the Empower, Create, Encourage podcast, dedicated to providing you with strategies and encouragement to improve the quality of your daily experiences. I'm with Simon Luthi, author of Becoming the Rocket Shaman, a spiritual survival guide for anyone healing from chronic illness, emotional pain, burnout, or a life that no longer fits. I love that you work with people that are looking to explore that part of their story that needs to be released. Many of us are living out inherited stories from our parents and grandparents, using the masks and coping mechanisms that help them survive, or we've inherited the goals that help them feel happiest and successful. What are some subtle signs that we might be living out an inherited identity?
It's a great question. I love that you lead our conversation with that. From the moment that we are born, we're really being bombarded with information, good or bad. Some of this stuff can happen in utero, and then, when you're born. And so you get information and expectations from your parents. You go through school, you have adolescents and friends. And so it forms kind of that identity, or you think that's your identity, and you never really question it. For me and many of the listeners out there, could be midlife crisis, like we wake up and you know something is not in congruence, innate knowing. And then some of us bite a motorcycle and go right back to sleep. And then others are like, hey, there got to be some more. And then unfortunately, also some of us, including yours truly, get sick, right? It's like a little bit of the wake up call of the God, divine, the universe, whatever you want to call it, right? To kind of say, hey, pay attention. Something is not quite right.
So I'm hearing that if people feel this sense of cognitive dissonance, they feel that something is wrong, that they're not quite satisfied with their life, that can be a sign that they're living out a story in life that is not actually for them. Have you noticed a pattern in the stories that men and women tell themselves? How are they different, and in what ways are they similar?
I would almost argue that most people don't know that they live out somebody else's story. I read a staggering statistic. I think it came from the Journal of Positive Psychology, that 70% of people report performing daily instead of living authentically.
Ooh.
If you think about the way, and maybe this is also how we grew up, my parents were survivors of World War II, and it's a little bit of like, hey, just heads down. It can't be that hard as long as food is on the table and shelter, kind of the basic human needs is provided.
Yeah.
What's your problem, right? Just heads down and just get at it. And I don't think that's a survival mechanism that works anymore in the 21st century. I would argue most people don't know that they're on autopilot until we start to actually question. It's staggering to me when I say, "Hey, are you living your story or somebody else's story?" And I get usually asked, "What do you mean? Why are you getting up in the morning? What is it really?" When you start asking people this question, that's usually kind of a pause. You get, "Oh, I never really thought about that." In your case, right, Alessandro, so it's the question, right? Are you living somebody else's life, or is there maybe some expectations that you got from your parents, from your grandparents, of things that you just live? You don't have to answer that, but that's the kind of the dialogue that's really interesting. Where is that stuff coming from? In my book, I talk about sending information back, return to sender, bad information and all that. Realizing that I'm not a victim of my life, and I'm not just an actor of my life, that I can become, and all of us can become, really an active director, again, of our life, and start to living the life we always wanted to.
Absolutely. And we can become the author that writes the story that we actually want to be a part of. There's some things that I'm reacting to that is not just my pain in this current present thing that's happening in my life. If there are things that are related to my parents' pain or my grandparents' pain or great grandparents' pain, that takes a bigger toll on me. And then my reactions are more reactive than I would actually like. And so it's interesting to go deep and say, why am I responding this way? And why am I choosing certain things? You also mentioned how back in the day it was a lot easier to just keep your head down and keep working, and that was fine as long as there was food on the table. And now in the 21st century, this is no longer satisfying. Let's talk about that a little bit. Why is there no longer that satisfaction in the 21st century? How has this convenience and this peace created more awareness for us to realize who am I really, and what are some problems that come with that, and how can we overcome it?
I'm speaking from my own experience, and I always say when I talk to people, my experience is my experience, and it may not necessarily be your experience, so I don't want to generalize. That said, I was born in Switzerland, so I come again from this generation. My dad was born, I think, in 26, my mom in 34. So both of them went through World War II and kind of the scariness of this. They also both kind of came out of this rebuilding of Europe and the economic upswing that came with that. Yet for them, there was still a bit of the, hey, as long as there's food on the table, shelter, live a good life, go on vacation every once in a while, it was good enough. I observed kind of in my generation, so I was born in the 70s, that for us it was like, hey, now I want to take this to the next level. I want to live a really good life. So coming, especially here as an immigrant to the US, is really about the American dream. And what is the American dream? You want to get to the top and you want to make a lot of money and you want to make it, because at the end of your life, you're like, yes, that was exactly what I did. In my case, right, it worked beautifully. Got to the executive suite, I had a good run, and then I got sick, right? So I was like, oh man, so something really is not quite working. And when I now observe my kids, we sort of gave them that beautiful life that, that we always wanted. I think they live a bit in a world of entitlement of, I'm owed this. We are influenced by what our parents have taught us, both in material things, but it's also passed down expectations and stories from the family. That's now sort of that beautiful moment, I think, where we can really start to question, why am I here? What am I doing? And is what I'm believing really true? And is it mine or is it not? So in my case, my parents were very much on performing good grades, and that was valued. And that's how they showed their love. We didn't really go through the hugs and the stuff that I think you probably need as a child. So all of us, jokingly like, oh, hey, look, mom, I wrote a book, or hey, look, dad, I made it into the Sweezy. We always felt your business card had to have at least a C level or at least president on your business card. But that's not why I'm here. That's what I did. And so when you really strip it down, I think we are all on a journey to be loved and to love. We just express it in a different way, and we've experienced it in a different way. And there's a little bit of, if we're honest, maybe a transactional aspect to this. I give you this for this. I think there is really a general belief out there that we just kind of function and we have to perform because the parents said so, or an authority said so, or a boss said so. We feel like we're sort of imprisoned by this whole thing. And I think the trick is to liberate yourself from all these expectations and start feeling again where you want to go.
I can see how, as a parent who lived in a time where there was so much chaos and so many challenges, you want your kids to be good performers because you want them to get good salaries. You want them to be able to have the things that you weren't able to have yourself or that you weren't able to provide for yourself. But the problem then is that we do become in this performative culture of, I only matter if I get good grades. I only matter if I can do this. And there's no space to figure out who we are and what we actually like.
Exactly. I can't remember now which Bible verse it is, but it says something like, love thy neighbor like thyself.
Yeah.
I always understood that to be, you got to love thy neighbor first. And then when you have energy left, then you can come back to you and you love yourself. And I think for many of us, maybe we are under the disguise, or you have to help people. That's sort of how we get our drive. That's something
And
that
it's
we're expected
interesting
to.
because Christianity can make it seem like if you are not helping other people, you're not a good person. I don't think we
Right,
touch enough
right.
in Christianity on it's important to love yourself and value yourself because you're not going to be able to pour out of an empty cup. You're not going to be able to practice compassion if you don't have it for yourself. You're not going to be able to have boundaries with other people if you don't have them with yourself. And so that's such an interesting conundrum. There's a lot of cultural conditioning and fear that kind of shape these roles and these stories that we tell ourselves. What does it take to let them go?
100%. Yeah. I learned that, or had to learn that really the hard way of like, okay, if I don't take care of myself first, I can't really take care of everybody else around me. But it took me getting sick to actually wake up to that reality. There's several beautiful books by somebody called Louise Hay. She's been a pioneer in figuring out physical illnesses and tying them to emotional causes. She has a 21-day mirror challenge out. I decided to do this 21-day mirror challenge. And it sounds super easy. You just stand in front of the mirror and say, I love you. I love you. I love you. It's wild how hard that is. I actually challenge everybody that's listening, do that for a couple of days. Just look in the mirror and be gentle to yourself and say, I love you. I love you. I love you. And then, of course, just, to add insult to injury, I got sick and I went through chemo and I lost my hair. So I felt like here's this bald guy that's staring at me that I didn't really know. And telling yourself that you love yourself when you really feel like you're not is super, super, super challenging. But what I have found through really sticking with this of telling myself, I love myself, I love myself, I approve of myself, I approve of myself, not only did I get better, I'm well. So I'm, 5 years in remission. I have no expectation that anything will ever come back. Positive affirmations absolutely work. And so through all of that, I truly, truly, truly believe that we can make a difference in the world because we start to believing, right? So this is the first mask you shed by giving up the belief that, oh, I should be this, I should be this, I should be that. Shouldn't have gray hair, shouldn't have be bald, shouldn't this, no wrinkles, all this stuff that we do about to kind of appease our appearance.
Yeah.
Why do you put on nice shirt? Why do you put on lipstick? Like, yeah, it makes me feel good. Great. If it's because of somebody else's expectation, that's the first, what I call return to sender. I developed this coaching program where I really start to coach people through the expectations of other people that are not yours, identify those, the masks you're wearing, how to take it off, and how to send it all back to sender. I think that's the first act of self-love, where you start to basically no longer live somebody else's story and you start believing that you are here on earth because you have a purpose and you want to make a difference. And from that perspective, helping people, that's powerful because it's no longer about, I have to in order to be loved, or I have to help so I get accolades, or I have to help so somebody pats me on the shoulder. It's like, I love myself and I want to do something because it makes me feel good because this is part of who I am, not because I expect something in return.
Because it's part of your identity. It makes you feel good. What would you tell people who are standing in front of the mirror and they're looking at the gray hair, they're looking at the wrinkles, they're looking at any number of things and they don't like it and it's hard to love themselves? What can they say if they're not ready to say, I love you? What are some other things that they can say?
I would say stop looking at your body and look in your eyes. Sometimes when people look at you and they're like, oh, they look me straight in the soul. A dog, for instance, as well. Dogs are really good at this. But no, all jokes aside, like I think the eyes, there's so much gentleness and truth. Regardless if you're trying to do this in the mirror or if you're doing this in the parking lot from the way, into work or on your way home or on the treadmill, repeat, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself 30, 60 times a day, however many you can do for a month. You don't even have to believe it. I think that's the beauty of it. Just stay with it. In my case, when I really started to love myself, for the first time in my life, I sat home alone, completely by myself. I can't remember whether it was 30 days or 45 days, doesn't matter, but it was not long. It was a couple of weeks. I had this feeling of complete bliss wash over me. For the first time, I felt complete. I felt whole. I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel the need for looking for a partner or anybody else. And that's really where I've discovered the power of positive affirmations with I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Maybe start with that first. Don't even look in the mirror if it's hard. But if you do go with the added challenge of looking in the mirror, the challenge would be look at yourself naked. That's then really like, the step up. Can you love yourself with all of the perceived faults
Yeah.
that we have?
I've also seen how it can change your physiology. I used to struggle looking in the mirror a lot. I used to even struggle like being on camera, like so much, like I just couldn't do it. The way your countenance looks almost looks different. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, and I do a lot of end of life work as well, and helping people transition to the other side. And to me, it's always interesting looking someone in the eye where the body is ready to transition and to go, but there's fire in the eyes, or there's tenderness in the eyes, there's love in the eyes, there's maybe even some sadness. I feel like the eyes are the one thing that doesn't really change as we age, right? And so I just choose to focus on the eyes, whether I talk with someone or I talk to myself or I do something with clients. I think that's kind of a beautiful part of our bodies that never really changes. In the contrary, I think there's lots to be said about yourself when you look yourself in the eyes.
I think a lot of a person shows up in the eyes. When I say countenance, I also talk about like the spirit behind their face. Whether someone is subjectively pretty to you or ugly to you doesn't matter. Like their spirit behind their face, like always kind of shines through, at least for me. Like I find it beautiful to meet someone and I can see they seem like they're a warm person. They seem like they're kind. They seem like they're very funny. It's really nice to see how their personality can help change their physical attributes.
100%. Yeah.
Can you teach me
Yeah,
a little bit
100%.
about the once upon a time method? What does it tend to reveal about people's subconscious stories?
It's part of one of my 9 steps in the coaching programs, where I teach people to just tell the story in a fairy tale format. So I learned this technique from one of my teachers, and I took it to the next level. I ask clients, write down the story of Alessandra. and do it in a fairy tale form. So once upon a time, there was a girl that named Alessandro that dot, 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 right? And you fill in the blanks. Why I'm doing this, for a lot of people, it's really, really hard to actually access some of their trauma, some of their beliefs, some of their conditionings. By being a bit playful with this exercise, it helps me to help someone to express how they're actually feeling. And I asked them to read it to me. And it's really kind of the first step into starting to unraveling the great unraveling of your life, of starting to take apart what you believe in and why, and where did this information come from? Has it served you? Has it not served you? The first step of just helping people access their emotions and their past.
One strategy that you recommend is to check in with ourselves and ask, is this mine? How does this technique help us realign with who we truly are and empower us to be authors of our own story?
I love this question. I'll give you an example. I had three near-death experiences between 3 and 18, and then I had a mystery illness that was misdiagnosed with 45, and then I got cancer at 50. So it was just kind of a crazy amount of work that came because nobody could really figure out what was going on with me. I started to look in the illogical places. I stopped just looking at Western medicine. I looked at where else is this coming from and why is this? And then somebody suggested I should do Reiki, and I thought the world was coming to an end. You know, you think about I'm in the corporate world, I'm like, and now all of a sudden I should go and do some energy medicine and Reiki. And it took me almost a year for me to say, okay, fine, I can no longer run from it. And so I've trained with, beautiful medicine men and medicine women and tribal healers, and have been able to really be equipped now as showing up for other people and leaning in. Why I'm sharing this with you, I got a message on Facebook from a family member that said, hey, what's this shaman thing? Weren't you walking with Jesus at some point? And, have you lost him in capital letters along the way? This isn't a diss on Christianity. This isn't a diss on Jesus. I was part of the Christian church for many, many, many years. And I still believe in a higher power. I just don't look at it as a manipulation tool anymore. For me, it's literally, I want to feel my spirituality in the way that I want to feel it in nature. So to your question, why I'm sharing this story with you, I could have taken this on and I could feel a little bit of like, I have to defend myself. He's wrong. I'm still part, of the church and I'm still believing this, but I have expanded myself. And what do we do normally? You get an email like this or a text message in this Facebook Messenger. Blah, 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 we're basically going and answering something and we're just spewing something else across.
Yeah.
And what I'm teaching now is this mine? Was this mine to carry or is this his? Rather than responding, I copied his message, I pasted it, and I hit send without any other message to it. No, I didn't need to defend myself. And what's happening on the other side of it, they sometimes have to then go, they open this message, go, what the heck just happened? They have to then think about what they just sent you. But what it does in your psyche, it's liberating. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel anything except, hey, not mine. If you want to judge me based on your beliefs or your upbringing and your conditioning, that's your prerogative. But I refuse to believe this story. I'm a child of Protestant parents, went to church, spent many, many years in Christian church, in the band, lots of amazing friends. And I would say I just expanded my belief into who God is and have more of a worldview, I guess, by now. So let me be, right? I don't need to explain myself. So it's just one example to kind of illustrate how conditioning and or expectations or comments can traumatize you and can shape you of who you are. If that had happened maybe 20 years earlier, I would have maybe gone, oh, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't do what I'm doing. And okay, you're right. I should, and that's sort of the part where kids specifically, it's almost that, you take their spirit away when things like that happen. And I'm sure all of you have stories, that are like that. I was told once I wasn't this. I was told once that somebody said I needed to do this in order to X, 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 X. And that's really the beauty of this, return to sender and realizing what's yours to carry and what's not anymore, because you just don't take responsibility anymore for other people's expectation. You can be you.
You get to just be, which is awesome because there's so many people who like to shame you into doing something or not doing something. A lot of times we start to carry that and then we lose sight of who we actually are because we get told something is bad or something is not good. And it's interesting how your response 20 years ago would have been like, oh, then I shouldn't do this because this is bad. A response can also be like getting angry or getting defensive. But then finally being in a space where it's just like, this is actually not mine to carry at all. Sylvia Galvez, the founder of Authentic Transformation, she taught me when people do this, it's all about their perception and their beliefs and their world.
Mhm.
You're just living your life, you're not thinking about them, but it challenges their belief system. So now they have to go and they have to say something to you so that things are okay in their world again because there's enmeshment there, right? And the phrase that she taught me that I love is, I have nothing to defend. I have nothing to protect. I have nothing to defend. I have nothing to protect. That helps me live my life in the way that I need to, that's best for me without having to prove to somebody that this is the best thing for me.
I love this. I love this. And one of the things that I say often is you are not broken. You are simply living a story that was never yours to begin with.
Hmm.
That's my encouragement in this work of mine, to really understand your beliefs and question your beliefs and be gentle with yourself as you unravel your life a little bit, and then understand again what is yours and what's not yours, and you don't have to defend yourself. I have to tell you that life gets much easier if you no longer have to argue over points or defend yourself or all this. You just walk away. I wonder whether that is what Jesus meant with turning the other cheek. And not so that the other person can hit you again, but just
Yeah.
to say, okay, not mine, walk away.
Jesus was such a great example of confidence and boundaries. He was such a confident guy. Like, I love studying the character of Jesus, seeing how he's patient, he's humble, but he's also extremely confident. He's so kind, and having the ability to have those personal boundaries and not get enmeshed and sucked into what other people think you need to be doing or you need to not be doing is such a big relief. It's too exhausting to live in a way where everything is constantly scrutinized and you're protecting and defending yourself against what may or may not be scrutinized. One beautiful and baffling thing that Christ did is when he's getting betrayed by Judas, Peter cuts off the guard's ear. Love that temperament, Peter. Christ goes and he heals the ear. I personally don't know if I would have it in me to heal the ear of someone who's taking me away. He just had such amazing integrity. And so he's such a wonderful example of walking his own path, regardless of all the hate that he received, all the scrutiny that he received, all the judgment. He was able to find peace in doing what felt right for him. That's such a sacred, sacred thing. You have a term where you call rewriting our stories a sacred act. What do you mean by that? And what is the first step?
It's not just psychology, it's really alchemy. Rewriting your story is alchemizing and transmuting your life into what you are meant to live. First step is understanding that you may live somebody else's life or somebody else's story, right? Even expectations that may have been placed on you, and then identifying a lot of the masks, right? Maybe there's a bit of Jungian psychology that comes in here as well, but the brave or the child or the person that has always to perform, that's a big thing to realize that, oh my gosh, there are actually things that I've never really thought about. So, for instance, to give you an example, you could, let's say, like, find myself saying I should more than I want to, or I worry about disappointing others more than honoring myself, or I feel exhausted from trying to be perfect, or I struggle to make decisions without external validation. I don't know that we are really ever stopping to say, okay, that's interesting that I'm feeling this. Is this mine or is this somebody else's expectation? There's also a little bit of the what could happen when I stop doing this. So I ask my clients often, what's the worst thing that can happen if you actually stopped and did something different? Yeah, it could lead maybe in some conflict, or it could also start to open up some beautiful questions. The masks that forms and kind of the survival identities we have. My favorite part is what I call the wilderness. So learning to be with uncertainty. I think a lot of us are afraid to step outside of the norm and step outside of expectations because you don't really know where this is going to lead you.
And there's a
And
lot of
so you,
anxiety that comes with that.
right? In a world where, AI is, you don't really know what's true or not anymore. I would always say the beauty of AI is that if you are willing and able question everything that's being put in front of you as true or not. Do I believe this or not? You have to. And over time, that intuitive gift that we have, like we've just forgotten, I think through all the progress in science, we've forgotten that we actually have that God-given intuitive
Mm.
gift of knowing. It takes a little bit of practice sometimes to figure out again of like, okay, do I actually know what's mine and what's not? And then in this wilderness, right, in this uncertainty, my dear teacher, Alberto Violdo, he would always say, live or you can dream your life into being. So coming out of the victim mode, learning to love yourself, look into the wilderness as an uncertainty, but really look at that as your dream. How would I do this? And then we work through the steps of how to create it.
Why do you think that so many people wait until they're in crisis, whether that's illness, burnout, or loss, to question their lives and if they're actually happy?
It's hard work. I mean, you think about it, the uncertainty part, because for me, I lived a comfortable life, plenty of money, plenty of food, vacations and all that. Why really change things? Because, it's kind of comfortable. At least for me, I can't speak for others. And I think there's also definitely some generational trauma that comes through that we don't even know about. Things that happen in our life are wake-up calls. And somebody said once to me, and I never forgot it, why is this happening for me, not to me? It's an interesting question, isn't it?
Mhm.
Why is this happening for me? Because so many often we're like in victim mode, go, oh my God, now here we go again. And, my life sucks and like this and that and always happens and I don't know. And when we stop and say, why is this happening for me? It starts to then really ask the right questions of like, interesting. Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
My mission really is to help people not go through the suffering I did by talking out loud about this stuff.
Simon, what do you think gets in our way the most from living out the life that we want and being who we want to be?
Fear, 100%. We're living in a fear-based world. Fear is a control mechanism as well. I'm not political and I'm not going into any kind of direction, but I just want you to think about this for a second. Fear of the unknown and or fear generally gets you to conform to do X, Y, Z. In our lives, we may be fearful to change. In my case, that was true, right? Fearful of like, okay, so I actually should be an author. Oh, I don't know. I'm probably not good enough, English not being my first language. Or you're going to be standing in front of people and are, healing people by your presence and or by your words. Me? No, I have stage fright. I can't be in front of a lot of people. And fear can manifest in a bunch of different ways. I see in my end of life work so much people hang on for dear life because they have regrets, right? I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I should have done more of this. Wish I did XYZ. Why didn't they do this? Probably for fear of being exposed or fear of being ridiculed, fear of being laughed at, fear of surroundings and all that. And my encouragement is understand that the fear mechanism is also a survival mechanism. The fight or flight, the proverbial, like, when you stand in front of a tiger, what do? Do you run or you or you
Fight,
fight,
flight,
right?
freeze, spawn. Yeah. Flirt with the
All that
tiger.
stuff. So we have to understand that we're wired a certain way. Luckily, we no longer really often have to go out and be eaten by a wild animal. It gets a little easier to kind of break away from the fear-based world in that
Yeah.
sense.
But we also
Um,
need to be mindful of the patterns of fear that have existed in our family. There's certain
right.
things in different families that could be perceived as threats, dangerous, or fear. And so sometimes that can keep us in a box as well. What have
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely. And
noticed is the number one regret of people you work with?
it's usually I should have spent more time with my family. A lot of
Oh,
people are talking about the fact that they spent so much time at work.
that hits home. Sometimes work is so exciting and alluring, and then it's just like, yeah, the stuff that really matters, that's your family.
Yeah, 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 right. And it's also a bit of the survival, right? We have to work in order to do this. We have to do
Yeah.
this.
What words of encouragement would you give to someone who feels that they're in the wrong book and in the wrong story?
You have way more power and you can stop and rewrite the story that you're living in, right? Pause the movie, step outside of the screen, start observing, and start rewriting. That would be my encouragement to you. You have way more power than you think.
If someone's listening and they know that they're ready to let go of a role that they never chose, what's one small but powerful step that they can take today?
Be super gentle with yourself. Keep coming back to self-love. You're not a victim of your circumstances. Start with a small act for yourself. Go out, buy yourself flowers. Don't wait for somebody to bring you flowers. Do something that really brings you joy and do it for yourself. That's, I think, the first act of taking your power back is by starting to take care of yourself and love yourself.
Thank you for listening to the Empower, Create, Encourage podcast. If you liked it, comment, share it, and subscribe for more. Remember, you're empowered to create the life, the love, and the reality you want. I believe in you. Espero que tu día esté lleno de magia y alegría. Con mucho cariño, nos vemos prontito.